Hey, I'm CaptainPira, and my next build features 3 of my favorite things: witches, dragons, and buffalo plaid. With isolation being the current theme of my life, it's increasingly hard to gather materials for cosplay. Originally, the D-stash was a great way to get me motivated to get rid of things that I already have. I'm going to change it up a little. This month's project is less going through my fabric stash and more working with things I already have, the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. I am reducing the overall waste I am creating for cosplay, as well as reducing the number of things I bring into my home to make a cosplay. So the only thing I had to acquire for this outfit is the wig, because this is a very specific look, and I didn't have enough blonde wigs to modify. Everything else was already in my inventory. Number 2, reuse. I'm reusing the blazer. One day when social distancing is over, I can hopefully have a friend dress up as my Noelle. Enough anime characters, you just have a lot of blouses in your stash because almost everyone's in school. From the waist down, the pants, the socks, and the boots that I wear with this when I'm actually going to do a shoot were all from my Futaba cosplay. So a lot of reuse going on. And finally, number 3, recycle. Guess what my cape is made of? If you guessed pajama bottoms, you would be correct. After years of cosplaying, there are going to be a few costumes that just do not work out for you. And for me, one of those costumes was the school uniforms for Yamushi Pedal. Because of that, I've had not 1, but 2 green thrifted blazers in my closet. I think I finally found a plan for them, and even better, they don't need to completely match. So this week I'm making the capes from Burn the Witch. So I'm making it. I mean, spoiler, I have made this. Since I have 2 blazers, I want to make Ninny and Noelle. And for Noelle, I'll be using my My Hero Academia skirt because it is also green. With the suits already made, the biggest challenge is going to be the capelets, especially since I'm upcycling them from a pair of pajama pants. They have seen some better days. They were too big from the get-go, and I've been wearing them with binder clips, so it is time to cut them up and ensure that I don't wear them again. But I don't want to just throw things out, which is probably why I have such a stash problem. So I'll be hoping there's enough material here to create a pair of capelets. Let's give it a go!
To start my capelet, I lay my pants flat. The back is slightly larger than the front, so I fold along the outer seam. To create my pattern, I lay down the blazer and pin along the edges of the top shoulder, curving down. If this was uncut fabric, I'd follow the line of the sleeve, but since I'm upcycling, I bring it to the edge of my pant leg. The waist tapers faster than the leg, so trying to place my pattern the opposite way won't help. Returning to my jacket pattern, I mark the length of my current cape.
The cape comes to here based on where I patterned it, which is a little too short for the front, but should hang longer in the back. So then if I bring around this line and just make it a little longer at the front, I think that'll work out okay. It never hurts to be extra short, so I've marked out the bottom line here. And if I line it up with my actual seams, I can see it does in fact come under the vest. And it should fall even longer on the back. Lining it up with my shoulder seams, I can feel that this comes to here.
It's safe to cut out along the pins now, and this back panel can be used to mark my front. If this was uncut fabric, I'd make the front the same size, plus seam allowance for the opening, but these are pants, so I'll just keep it as wide as I can. There are 2 pant legs and 2 matching characters, so I might as well make a second cape for one day in the future when I can see friends again. For the second cape, I tried placing my pattern upside down for comparison.
Option 1, hang around here. It will have kind of a weird point in the corner probably, so I think I'm going to avoid it unless the other side is unbearably bad. And here's option 2. And this is the full length. This one would need trimmed. I think this one sits better.
This is the one I'm going with, so I can cut it out along the pins and at the seams, then use it to cut my second set. So now I've got all my pieces, 3 for each cape. Except the back cape panel's center seam has a pocket, so I have to rip these seams out and take them out. The previous folds are still pressed in, so it's really easy to overlap these seams, pin them together, and top stitch them down. With my panels ready, I can finally join the front and back panels along the shoulders and sides.
So my edges were too round and it was puckering, so I've straightened it out from about the calf of the shoulder to the bottom, but it is still not quite hitting the right place, so I probably need to adjust the curve here a little. So you can see without it tucked in, it just kind of shoots up and looks terrible. Hopefully the bow will cover the gap in between because this is a little further apart than I would like. And I need to do the Aries symbol on the back. And so far it's sitting better. I will have to hem the inside properly because I didn't want to cut until I knew this was going to fit okay, because I'm losing a lot of inches and I don't really have another try at this.
After making my adjustments and serging the edge, I cut an arc for the back neck opening to help things sit a little better. Then serge all the outer edges. I'm double folding the edges, so this is less necessary and more of an easy size guide for consistency.
Now it just needs the bow, and if that's not enough to hide this gap, I might add little flaps here and here where I can connect the bow, and otherwise part 1 is done. Time to make a whole other one.
My bows are just a lot of rectangles. I think the strip is 5 inches wide. Since this is drawn as a ribbon bow, I hem all the edges. I cut the 60-inch strip in half, 1 per bow, then fold to determine my bow size. This one is roughly 3/4 of my strip, though for the second bow I go closer to 2/3. Taking my long rectangle, I fold both sides into the center overlapping, and will stitch a line down it where it gathers. The remaining end will be for the bow's tails. The piece is folded, then a triangle is cut from each end. I hem these as well. This piece was a bit short to hang nicely, so I cut it about halfway through the center and tucked the loose ends into the back of the bow, while the center is gathered with the rest of the bow.
Okay, so the cape just needs the applique and the closure, but the closures are going to join to the bow. And before I finish the bow, I need to 3D print the little emblem that goes on here, and then I can attach it to the loop before I loop it around the bow. It's coming along.
To draft my applique, I mark down my center line, then decide how wide I want it to extend. I freehand both sides, then fold on the center line. This way I can cut whatever side looks better, or find a midground between drawings, as well as ensuring it's symmetrical. When I'm happy with the shape and scale, I can transfer this to a gold vinyl remnant. It's yellow in the cartoon, but gold is more magical and goes with their buttons. Trace, cut, and test the placement. Then I can spray temporary adhesive to the back of my applique. Since pins leave a mark on vinyl, this is often a better option to hold it in place for top stitching.
For the holsters, I'll be using this white vinyl scrap from Lens Mills. It has a lot of imperfections on it, but I only need a couple of straps, so I should be able to avoid them.
For the holster, I wanted to wait until my pistol was printed so I could size it properly. The main bucket should hold the grip comfortably, and the top straps should hit about midway through the barrel. I start with the eye shape that rests against my leg, then fold the base to create the back, bottom, and front. The sides of the bucket will be stitched in panels, ideally the remnants from the eye shape. The holster is held on by two straps, so I need to measure my thigh, high up and near the midsection. To give the strap some weight, I measure twice the height I need and fold it over, stitching along both the outer edge and the folded one. The actual holder will have the front and back showing once it's sewn, so I also cut this along a fold. Cutting the eye shape with both sides together, I can ensure the front and back will line up. Then I can sew along the open edges. With two of the offcuts, I round the two bottom corners, then clip them in place to close the bucket. The remaining two offcuts I fold over the ends of the straps. You could have just cut this wider initially, but I'm trying to create minimal waste. The bucket sides would be difficult to machine stitch, so I do this by hand. When all the hand sewing is done, I trim the corners and edges and decide on the strap placement. It probably would have been better to cut these slits before sewing both sides together, but it's too late, so I make sure to press gently with the X-Acto knife to make sure I only cut through the back layer. Then slip my straps through the loops. There's elastic at the ends, so I can avoid using buckles, as none are visible in the original artwork. To determine my strap lengths, I try it on and bend my leg a few times to check if it'll stay in place while moving. Then I can sew them in place and add snap closures for the pistol strap. When I was debating making this costume or not, I modeled some of the props. Here's Ninny's belt buckle, all printed up. 3D printing can feel like magic at times, but it's a lot of work at others. My printer is mostly working again, but needed a filament change 2 hours into this print. 5 hours later. A print generally has removable trim around the first layer to keep your part sturdy and adhere to the surface. I also had to slice my pistol into quarters to fit it on my bed, while still being large enough to fit in my hand. This is after sanding with 80 grit sandpaper, but I do a round with 320 after. Then I super glue the pieces together and use some clamps to hold them overnight. Next, I'm printing Ninny's hair clips. Cut down the center to avoid printing supports. They're U-shaped, so I can tuck them over the ponytail clips. And while that's going, on the other printer I've got the bow emblems and Noelle's hair clip in the works. The Ninny clips are printed. Once I pop them out of their base, they'll look more ready. But to finish the sewing, I need my belt buckle done. Once I'm satisfied with the sanding, I use super glue to insert the belt loops, and try to apply pressure. And since the glue is out, I'm also going to join the front and backs of my Ninny clips, and use clamps to keep them together. These have also gone through 2 sanding passes. For the brooches and belt buckle, I'm using an old moving box for the overspray, and coating it with my favorite gold spray paint from Krylon. It tends to have a warmer feel than the other golds I've tried. The next day, the hair clips are solidly assembled. To get back some of the sheen they lost from sanding, I hit them with a few coats of crystal clear. When the first 2 halves of the pistol are solidly together, I join these pieces as well. Since there's going to be more strain along the shaft, it's also been soldered together with extra filament. Then, the whole thing is resanded and sprayed with a sandable primer. Shockingly, I have no banana yellow spray paint on hand, so I mix white and yellow acrylic. Because my base is so dark, it takes 3 coats to get a good coverage. More surprisingly, I don't have any bright pinks aside from airbrush paint. While it's not the best use of your paint, you can just brush it on, so I'm freehanding the finishing star details. Et voila! When my belt buckle is done, I can start the belt and suspenders. First, I need to try on my shorts so I can measure my hips where the belt will sit. I'm using a sparkly black vinyl mostly because I have it, and using a ruler that fits through my belt loops as my strap guide. When it's cut, I loop the end around my belt buckle. Back to my bows. I cut another long strip of fabric and divide it into 4. Each piece is folded, then sewn along 2 sides and turned inside out. I had postponed finishing the bows until the brooches were done, but I didn't glue them to the pin backs ahead of time, so I'll add them in later. Taking one rectangle, I loop it around the center of my bow, loose enough I can pin the brooch on later, and hand stitch it shut. The other rectangle slips through the bow loop at the back, and is stitched to the corner of the capelet. The other side is joined in the same place by a snap. For the suspenders, I'm upcycling the hardware from an old pair that was too short. I cut vinyl strips to the width of my suspender clips and loop it through the slide adjusters, then the suspender clips, then back through the bar of the slide adjuster where I'll stitch it shut. The longest piece of vinyl I could cut from my belt was a little too short, so I'm using elastic to loop around the belt buckle. This should also take some strain off of the part. The other end I'm folding over the belt buckle and adding a snap closure. Back to the suspenders. My vinyl straps are also a little too short, so I've decided to make Y-shaped suspenders instead of separate straps. So I'm sewing both ends to a gold vinyl triangle and using elastic at the base to give them more maneuverability. The end of the elastic is looped through another suspender clip and back up into the Y. This third clip will be clipped at the center back. And that's it for sewing.
Unlike a lot of my recent projects, I've actually bought a character-specific wig for this one. I went with one of the BlueBeard brands because I'd heard good things about them. And like the clips are really full, which is really nice. And they weigh almost nothing, which is impressive for how dense they are. The bangs I thought were maybe a little thin for how fluffy they need to be, and the same with the top floofs. But I think that they just needed a little more teasing than I was able to give. A little shinier than I was expecting, but overall definitely worth the price. Each girl has a custom hairpiece. These are Ninnies. They are ovals that just slide over the wig clip. They're much easier to take off than to get in, but if it gives you trouble, just like pinch it shut a little more. I have a love-hate relationship with Bleach. The first 20 episodes are one of the best shonens I have ever seen, and then it just kept going. The manga, visually gorgeous, at least the chapter covers. I liked one so much that I traced it off onto a t-shirt before you could buy anime t-shirts, and I wore that regularly in public. But from reading the manga, I've been a longtime fan of the Bleach aesthetic, so I was really excited to see that there's a new work. There are some beautiful dragons and beautiful magical people and a Pomeranian with wings that is just too precious, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it was the first media I'd consumed in months that stuck with me, so I needed to make this. I modeled a lot of my own pieces for cosplay, so if you're interested in the bits from my Ninny cosplay or something else that I've made and posted either here or on my Instagram, shoot me a message, leave me a comment, and I'll try and make it available. For now, I think I'm going to put the Ninny kit as well as the Noelle version of the hair clips and the gun in my Ko-fi store, so look for it there. If you watched this far, thank you so much. Likes and comments help a lot. Also, if you enjoy this video, I have 5 other similar projects. I mean, they're all a little different in terms of what I'm making, but they're all fairly small cosplay builds if you're looking for some inspiration or how to make a specific cosplay. Might be fun to check out. And I'm trying to do one of these videos a month, so if that interests you, please subscribe. Thanks again for watching and have a great year. It's a new year, it's a new start, but remember, change comes from within. So make like a shonen rival after the protag has punched you in the heart, and be the change you want to see in the world. Happy New Year! Thanks for watching! Where'd that dragon go?